So have you ever wondered what it's like to actually have a real life Pinterest board executor working for you? I do have that luxury and that pleasure. And today's Hottie Hustle episode is really going to be taking advantage of the fourth quarter merchandising, how you can express your inner creativity. But the best part about all of that is that I'm going to teach you guys, along with Lisa Shetler, who is here with me today. She is my creative director here at Haute LLC, how you at home can ball on a budget. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have here at Haute is we get so many compliments and feedback on how amazing our setup looks, how our decor is, how well we merchandise, how often we have to re-merchandise. And there's a really big misconception out there that we have to spend a lot of money to make it look amazing. And the reality is, guys, is that you don't. If you just channel some inner creativity, get a little bit resourceful, and really maximize your strengths, you can take any idea that you find on Pinterest and be able to execute that in the version that best suits yourself. And even if you're not in the retail industry, I think just taking some of those principles and practices and really figuring out how you can divulge that in your own business to be resourceful and think outside of the box, I think you'd be really surprised at how much more you'd be able to get done. So today we're peeling back the layers. I'm going to introduce you to my creative director of Haute LLC, the Hottie veteran, the OG initiator of the term Hottie. You know her best as Lisa Marie from New York. And let's dive right into the Hottie Hustle. This is merchandising and balling on a budget in 2023. Hey y'all, my name is Amy Curley and I'm your resident Hottie. I'm a veteran in the retail apparel industry with a brick and mortar location, a wholesale apparel line, a monthly subscription box, and event rental spaces. During my 11 years in this industry, I have accumulated a wealth of firsthand experiences and a growing list of what to do and what not to do when running a small business. I may not be a millionaire or in the Fortune 500, but I have learned to gross millions of dollars in sales by using a combination of old faithful sales tactics, tricks of the trade, and diversifying my platform into experiential retail. I'm just your average girl next door, but if you hang with me and get ready to take action on your passion, I can help you go from hesitant to hottie in your own entrepreneurship journey. This is the Hottie Hustle. So Lisa, I am so excited to have you here. And I think for those hotties that don't know a little bit about you or your background story with us, I'd love for you to just take a couple of minutes and tell everyone listening at home your experience here with Haute, what your background was previously, and just a little bit about Lisa Marie.
Well, hello. I'm so happy to be here. Let's see, my background. Well, I feel like it started when I was a kid in my bedroom because I was always very sensitive to my surroundings. And, you know, being a kid, you don't have a lot of control over what goes on in your childhood home except for your bedroom. So I would rearrange my bedroom probably every other week, maybe once a week, depending on my mood. And I was very sensitive to it. I needed to have it the way that I wanted it, and it just started then. So when it came time for college, I went to school for fashion design, and I fell in love with interiors instead. And I've always loved the idea of the way that I felt when I walked into a store or a room or somebody's home, and it made me feel a certain way. And when I got my own home, I decided, well, this is the time that, you know, I can let my creative flag fly high. So I designed a few store windows back home in Hudson, New York. That is where I'm from. And when I moved to Colorado and I got married, I worked for Pottery Barn Kids for several years and did a lot of floor sets. And I learned a lot there too. But I actually probably my best school of design was trial and error, the School of Hard Knocks, and the School of, you know, your own house. I tried things. If they didn't work, I tried something else. And I think the big secret is you just keep trying and you don't give up. You don't get frustrated. and you become resourceful. But I've made it to the Haute Empire 4 years ago, and it's just been it's history now. It's so fun. It's so wonderful. And Amy, you just give me the opportunity to be myself and let my odd, sometimes questionable creative juices flow. So
That's facts.
that's my story.
That's factual. I would agree with that. Well, one of the reasons I really wanted Lisa to be here, and when I was sitting down and, we're new to the podcast game here, but I've been mapping out and planning out all of the people that I would want to have, and really in order that I would want you guys to have them. And so, when we have people on the podcast, it's not because I'm just looking for people to fill up time and space. It's because they bring value. And we consider Lisa here at Haute one of the most valuable team members that we have, not only because she's a veteran in the industry and a veteran as a hottie, but she brings an intangible amount of creativity, insight, inspiration, and she just has this knack for being able to execute and find a way to truly ball on a budget. I could come to her with the craziest of ideas, and she finds a way to be able to make that happen for me and also save me quite a few dollars in the process. And it's become extremely valuable for me as a business owner, and for you guys too, as future entrepreneurs, or if you're thinking about starting your own business. You might be in the creative space. Not everyone listening to this podcast would be in the retail sector. You might be a creative like Lisa, and that just might be your jam. And so I really wanted her to be able to share with you guys where that inspiration comes from. Again, her dream job, I know, is for anthropology to come calling. The minute they do, I will cry and hide in the corner in the fetal position because I cannot let her go. But I mean, she just is an extreme, one-of-a-kind, unique talent that only comes around once in a lifetime. And if she can share, the intangibles that she's gained over her experience in the industry, then I know you guys can take some of this. So again, as we always say in the Hottie Hustle, grab a pen and paper. There's going to be lots of things you're going to want to write down. But Lisa is the driving force behind and the one responsible for what you see here executed at Haute LLC. Everything from Harry Potter to Christmas to, the amazing booth displays that we do at holiday shows. And so people always want to know the very first question: where does the creativity come from? How do you find the ideas? How does that come about? Does it truly just pop into your head? Or for those of us who might not be gifted that God-given talent of just kind of knowing, how could we also take some of that zhuzhing experience that you have, and what could we use to channel our inner Lisa, and where do you find all that inspiration?
I had to sit down and think about this because it is one of those things, we're all born with these innate God-given talents, and I cannot sit down at a computer, and Amy knows this about me. I can't sit down at a computer and do that kind of work all day long. It actually hurts. It lights up that part of my brain where if you really stubbed your toe bad, it just hurts. So when I do walk into a space, I can see a design, I can see different possibilities. But when I have to sit down and think about it, if I haven't seen the space, what I do is I think about how I want it to make me feel, or how I want it to make the customer feel, or how I want it to make Amy feel. And I draw on memories of the last time I had that feeling. And I think about where I was, and geographically whose house it was, how old I was. I mean, I draw on all kinds of different things, what made me feel that way. And a lot of my inspiration comes from, believe it or not, I have an Aunt Diane. And I think I've told you this story before, Amy. And I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, and it was a tiny house. My dad built the house in 1955. It was probably less than 1,000 square feet. And he believed that nobody needed more than 3 bedrooms and a bath. Well, 3 bedrooms, a bath, a parlor, and a kitchen, an eat-in kitchen. So when we used to go visit my Aunt Diane, who lived in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and if you're a New Englander, you know that Connecticut, the Ridgefield, Westport, Woodbury area, they're all kind of a little highfalutin.
Okay.
I mean, they've got some money to spend on decor and real estate.
Okay.
So my Aunt Diane's house was an old carriage house, which there's a whole other story about the carriage house we won't get in today, but we're actually sitting in the carriage house right now.
are.
Not Aunt Diane's, because that's still in Connecticut, but in Round Rock, Texas, we have a carriage house here now. She took a carriage house and she made it into a residential property, and it was just the grandest thing that I had ever walked into. And when I walked into that house, I don't know if the planets aligned, if it was lightning in a bottle, but every single time now, even when I walk into a small home or a store or a big empty room that we have to decorate, I remember how I felt the first time I ever walked into my Aunt Diane's house. I mean, this was a residential home, but it was a carriage house where they had to park carriages and horses, so you can imagine the grand scale of the entire house. And they put a second floor in, and the attic was the length of the house, and she had swings in the attic for her kids. And I mean, I could go on and on about this house, but I was just, it imprinted on me, and I remember that exact feeling. And I remember, again, not having much control over my childhood home and being that sensitive to my surroundings. That moment in time has always made me reflect back on how important it is when someone walks into a store, a home, what have you, and how it makes you feel. I mean, it's just one of those senses that you just, it's not quite as powerful as the olfactory bulb, the smell, but it is, for me, probably the second most powerful. So when I do that, when I figure out where I was and how old I was and how it made me feel, it starts the ball rolling, and then I take the space into consideration, and it just kind of starts to roll from there.
So it's memory driven.
It's memory driven. It's feeling driven. Everything that I do is based on a feeling. There's no practicality, which I'm sure you know that. There's no structure. There's none of that. It is all based on a feeling, and then I just take it from there.
I love that. So taking that to those who might be listening at home, let's say they're not in the retail industry, do you feel like if they're just feeling stuck, let's just say they're stuck in their business, because we've actually been there for Haute. Sometimes the creative juices just stop flowing, and we feel like we've exhausted everything and we've tried everything. And whether you're in retail or not, I mean, people listening to this could be feeling the very same way, or lacking the inspiration to even start their business. Where do I even start? So do you feel like it's fair to say that a really good place and a really great tip for everyone listening at home would to be to stop and reflect back on a memory that gave them a good feeling, and then write down what they loved, like how does that make them feel, and what could they do now to capture that same feeling?
Right. So, yes, absolutely. I think when you feel a certain way, that in and of itself is inspiration. When I need a little bit more, when I need to be pushed, I will go to other stores. I will go to anywhere that I walk into. I'll go to somebody else's house. Just taking a walk outside, it's that perpetual feeling of always looking for inspiration. And you know how runners get a runner's high?
Yeah.
And they're always looking for it, and that's why people run.
Yep.
Every day they want that high. Well, my so-called dragon chase, my chasing the dragon, is inspiration. I love to be inspired by different people's creativity, different people's decor. So I will go down to Anthropologie and I'll just walk around. I will go into like our house, or I can't remember the name of that big store that I love down at the Domain. I can't remember the name. Oh, Restoration Hardware.
Oh, yeah.
How could I not remember that?
know.
Oh my
That's a
gosh.
fancy one. That's a
That is
bougie
a
one.
huge bougie fancy one. I'll go walk down there. I'll sit down and I'll get on Pinterest and I'll just look at other people's creativity. But the main thing for me is remembering, where was I? How can I recreate that? Because, you know, a memory is a memory and it's fantastic. But when you need inspiration and you're like in the moment and you need it now, how can I recreate that? How can I recreate those surroundings? to help me now. So was it fall time? Was it summer? Where was I? Do I need to be outside? Do I need to, recreate a smell or something that will take me back to that moment in the present time? And it kind of inspires me all over again. That's why the olfactory bulb, the nose, our smells are so important. And that really does trigger it for me. But mostly I love to see other people's creativity, and it just kind of gets the juices flowing again, and something else sparks, and it's kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie kind of situation, which that happens a lot around here as well.
Yes, it does.
Things spring and other things are born.
Yes.
And that's okay.
Absolutely. So I'm glad you're talking about all the bougie things that you love, because this is kind of taking me in. I know you've kind of just talked a little bit about the driving force behind your inspiration and how you recharge and are continually coming up with something new and something new and something better. And I love that so much. I just love to see what you're going to come up with. But I know that I am very visual. And so you have grown to appreciate that and learn that about me. And that's how you've started to present information to me, which I so very much appreciate. But because I am so visual, and for those who might be at home that are visual, sometimes we're just looking for something and we just need someone to show it to us, and then we can duplicate the process. However, sometimes for me, we talk about this a lot here at Haute. What do you have more of? Time or treasure, right? And so we either have the time to do it ourselves, or for those at home who don't have a Lisa on staff, they are the person that has to recreate it. They might need to put the time in, but they also have a little bit of treasure to throw at it. And where I'm going with this is, how can people, or what tips do you have for those at home that if we need to truly ball on a budget? Because let's be real, most of these people who are listening to this podcast are self-employed entrepreneurs. So just like we do, we have to evaluate the budget, and we have to look and say, okay, what do we have more of in this moment? Is it time or is it treasure? And which one can we throw at it the most? So what are the standard go-throughs? Because I know you have a checklist of things. I know you have tips and tricks of where you go, and hopefully you're willing to not gatekeep some of your secrets for our Hottie Hustler listeners today. But what are the things that you do when I say, listen, you have a budget, it's not unlimited resources on this one, I need you to make this happen for this amount of money? And how can someone at home use those same tips and tricks to be able to execute for themselves as well?
Okay. Well, let's see. I think when it comes to needing to make a grand statement, or like for us, we're going into the Christmas season and we do Christmas shows, we need to have grand statements that don't cost a lot of money, that sometimes we, like you said, we have more time or we have more treasure. So what I do, the first thing that I do is I decide, well, what's going to be a big feature item and how can I do it on a budget? For example, this year we're doing Candyland. That is our theme for Christmas this year. And Amy and I had planned ahead, and we had planned it early on in the year, and come to find out all of the things that we had wanted to buy and order for our merchandising this Christmas wasn't going to be in until after our Christmas shows. So we take the Candyland theme, and I'm like, okay. And I sit down with my best friend, Pinterest. I mean, I'm not going to gatekeep that. And I know that y'all are probably rolling your eyes and like, oh, Pinterest. Yes, it's a time suck. It really is. However, if you go in there with a purpose and you're focused, it really is a wealth of information. So another stream that I like to follow when I need to do things on a budget is YouTube. And in this day and age, when I started doing this, it wasn't as popular, but now to get on YouTube and to do, designer dupes, like if you just get into YouTube and you search dupes, Pottery Barn dupes or anthropology dupes, there are so many videos that come up, and what I like to do is I like to take these videos and I like to take it a step further, because usually in these videos, women are making things that are scaled, like they're smaller, they're not high impact kind of merchandising or like big focal featured kind of pieces. So you just kind of take it another step. So one of the best tricks of the trade that I have is to go to a thrift store. I love secondhand stores. Amy knows this about me. I think sometimes she wishes she had a GPS on my car. Lisa's been gone for a couple hours. I wonder where she could be.
I should have sent a supervisor.
Yeah, I should have sent a chaperone. I like to go to thrift stores, and I like to take things that are very, low in price, and I like to make things out of them that they are not earmarked for. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example of the last thing that I did.
Well, you just found some legs.
I did.
That's pretty cool.
I did. So here's a great example. I found mannequin legs. Now, we needed mannequin legs for mannequin leg purposes. However, if I was balling on a budget for Halloween, this is a perfect example. Thank you for bringing that up, because I was drawing a blank there because there's so many to choose from. I'm having overload. If we didn't need those mannequin legs for their intended purpose, I was going to take them and put them upside down in a planter urn and put witch stockings on them and old pointed shoes. And they were going to be a witch upside down in a planter urn.
I love it.
And since we have a Harry Potter theme going on right now, that probably would have been okay.
Yeah.
Or we would have somehow affixed them to a faux brick wall, and she would have been going through the wall because she was late to catch the Hogwarts train.
Oh,
I mean, there are so many
creative.
things. So that is a very good example of what you can do for very low cost. And you guys would be amazed at the things that you can make with foam board and hula hoops and pool noodles. And it's just absolutely amazing. But when you're working with a budget and you want to make a big impact, my biggest probably piece of advice is don't do little things. Little things are going to look cluttered, and they're just not going to have that kind of wow factor that you're going in for. Our Candyland feature is going to be a huge gingerbread house that in Candyland colors that I built from foam board and duct tape and, these grand delusions. But it's going to come out amazing. So the best piece of advice that I have is use inexpensive supplies for big, grand gestures. And you don't have to be an artist. I am not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. I cannot draw to save my rear end. My daughter can, I cannot. But just get a picture that inspires you and get materials that are inexpensive. The Dollar Tree and the thrift store, they've got my number, and they've got they've got a chokehold.
Mentioned Dollar Tree.
Yeah, Dollar Tree is absolutely fantastic, you guys. I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast on that, and we could go into a huge tangent right now. But I know Amy has other things that she wants me to talk about, so I'm going to hand the mic back to her. However, just remember large pieces for a bigger impact, and make sure that you fill negative spaces with things like balloons, or make hula hoop streamers, or something that takes the eye from a blank, empty, negative space to something big and grand that can fill a space and just make it go with your theme. It doesn't sound easy, but just start. It's not scary, and you really can't mess up.
Yeah, that's factual. Okay, so when you are channeling all that creativity, when you've got all the things that you've pulled together and you're ready to actually start implementing this, and even if people are not in the retail industry or the fashion design world, or even in home design or interior decorating, you could absolutely take all of these tips and use them for your home. If you just want to create a safe place for your home. I mean, when I come to work, it's kind of like I am performing. I'm on a stage, so to speak, every day. And so when I get home, I like to, feel very zen. So I use a lot of your tips and tricks for my home, just so that when I come back, it's a safe place for me. It's a calming place for me. But when actually implementing the merchandising of it, because I feel like I tell you this all the time, it does not matter And I would consider myself pretty good at merchandising. I'm not on your level, but I would consider myself pretty good at it.
I think you're really good at
And
merchandising.
before I had you, I didn't have anyone else to do it other than me. However, to this day, what do I tell you every Thursday or Friday before the weekend? I need you to make a pass through the store because it needs your touch. I need you to go put the Lisa touch. I need you to go zhuzh it a little bit. I need you to put your eyes on it. Those are all things that I say to you on a weekly, if not every other day, especially if we've had a busy day and there's holes in the store. We need to move things around, make it look fuller. So I guess my question would be, when you go to approach a space, like let's say somebody's looking to freshen up their home or give it a transition. We're getting ready to transition from, fall to Christmas and people are already starting Christmas decorating. What is the best tips and tricks that you have for looking at a space and being able to see it and visualize what you want it to look like and then actually being able to execute that plan? Because I think a lot of us can see it. It's just actually taking action on that and being able to externalize what we see in our head. And it doesn't always turn out the way that we see it in our head. So what are some of the things, like, do you have a checklist that when I say, all right, Lisa, the store needs to be rejudged, I need you to go put your touch on it. Do you have a checklist that you run through?
I have a mental checklist, and I use it in my home. I use it whenever we're designing one of our event spaces or when we go to do big shows or whatever. I learned this tip years ago from one of my favorite bloggers. And, this was back in like 2011, 2012 when blogging was just absolutely huge and everybody was starting to do it. Her blog name is The Nester, and it's called Quieting the Space. And I think I've shared that with you before. So everything needs to come out. Now, I know that doesn't sound realistic with furniture and stuff, and that's fine. Big pieces can stay there, but everything needs to come out. Like every little tchotchke, textiles, everything that you have in that space that is not too heavy to move, you need to see that space raw, and you need to forget everything that you saw before, and you need to imagine it for what you need right now. And my other favorite thing to do is before you go out and do shopping and make your lists and start, buying, again, being on a budget, before you start doing all of that, what I do is I call it shop my house. I shop my house. There might be something in the kitchen that's going to look great in the entryway for this season, for a Christmas season. Say I have some greenery in the kitchen, I'm going to move it to my foyer that I want to like dazzle as soon as people walk into my house. Rugs, nothing is off limits to me. I put furniture pieces in the oddest of places and it just happens to work out. So I think the other thing too is forget all of the rules that you've learned and don't be afraid to try different things. Get yourself some furniture movers or get your butt to the gym, whichever. Exactly. Furniture movers are awesome. But I like to do unconventional things. I never like to push things up against the wall. It just makes rooms look like a huge box. And there's nothing that you can't do, whether it's in your store, whether it's in your own home, whether it's in a space that you're trying to create for someone else. It really does help to just quiet down the room, take everything out and start with a blank slate. And it will amaze you what you can come up with and be creative with different things that you can find already that you have that you can just repurpose and use in a different way. And then I will go to Home Goods or TJ Maxx or, of course, the thrift store. I'll even go to Anthropologie sometimes if we just need a big wow piece and it's in the budget, just to kind of give that space that special touch. And if whatever it is, whatever store it is, whatever it makes me feel, then that's kind of, I just run with that.
Okay, so can I just first of all say how completely metaphoric and symbolic everything that you just said translates and can be for a small business owner. I don't even know if you realized all the things that you're saying.
Of course not. What I was concentrating on is not saying That's what I was doing.
That has been her biggest fear coming here today.
I know.
She said that 4 times. She's like, I don't want to say I don't want to say I don't want to say. But can we just rewind for a minute? And if you have not taken any notes at all, everything that Lisa just said is golden for you. Take out merchandising. Let's just pretend like you have no interest in any of that. If home decor is not your jam, right? Let's talk about just quieting the space for a minute, because that absolutely resonated with me, but on a completely different level that I don't think that you intended it to be. Because you're talking about quieting the space to make it look beautiful. I'm internalizing that as quiet the noise and quiet my mind and turning up your soil and all of the things that we've been talking about here at Haute, that sometimes to find the answer of what you're after and to see the vision of what you're asking to be shown, you just have to turn your brain off and quiet the space for a minute. So how incredibly impactful and symbolic that can be to just go through that exercise and even shop the house, right? Like if you're looking to make a change in your business or to change something up, what do you have now? And we do this all the time, but with people. We shop the house with our employees.
Yeah, we do.
All the time. And so I think how amazing that is that you've just said all of that and how this can totally resonate for a small business owner. And again, write this down. You know, we have to look at sometimes what we have. And are we using those things to the best of our ability? And even for people, if you're privileged enough, which I consider it a privilege to be able to have employees, to be able to afford employees, to coach employees, are you using those people to the best of their advantage? And Lisa can tell you, every person at Haute has learned every single role here and every job. Number one, because they've had to. And number two, because there's been a need to. And number three, because they've been asked to turn up their soil and do something different based on the need of the business. The need of the business doesn't change, just like the need of your home doesn't change. If you're after a piece in your dining room, you can go rearrange your living room, but it's still not going to make you feel better about the dining room. You're just shuffling things around to try to make yourself feel better about something that you're not tackling. So I think that's amazing. I love everything that you just said and how great that is for our listeners and future entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs, hottie hustlers, to be able to use these tactics, you know, yes, to make your home feel beautiful, yes, to make your store feel beautiful, but also to make your soul feel beautiful. And that's so huge for me. And I'm definitely going to write all of those things down.
I'm so glad.
So good job, Lisa Marie.
Oh, thank you.
You did good. Okay, so keeping kind of on the business theme here, if we can, for just a couple of minutes. And I know there's probably so much more you want to share about the whole decorating and merchandising and all the things. But I want to stick to the business side here a little bit, because you are the hottie veteran on campus. You are the senior around here, and you are the big man on campus. The big, you know, not big girl. I don't want to say that, but big girl. You know what I mean. You are, you know, you're like the senior. So you have the most seniority here. What would you say, because it's coming up on 4.5 years, right?
July was 4 years.
July was 4 years. So we're just about we're almost through 2023. So 4.5 years. What do you think are some of, and it can be one, it can be some, the biggest takeaways that you've had? Because I know you have tons of experience in the industry coming in here, but sometimes there's just nothing like being here and being in it and having those curveballs thrown at you and all the highs and all the lows and everything in between that you've been able to experience as being a part of this company. COVID, being shut down, having to fill orders, being a delivery driver, working the store. I mean, you've kind of done it all here. So what are some of your biggest takeaways just from being a hottie and experience that you might feel like that you could pass on to those who are listening now, 4.5 years later, as the creative director for our entire brand?
Well, I think the most important thing when it comes to what I've taken away from here and what I've gained and what I've learned is to meet people where they are. We all come into a job, into a relationship, into a situation with preconceived notions. We've all had different experiences in our lives, and we all have different thoughts and ideas and processes coming into a new job, into a new anything, a new experience, a new friendship, a new boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And I think it's really important to know that you are the only one who has lived your history. So it's important to kind of, again, quiet the house and meet people where they are when you meet them. And it's okay. It's okay that, this one person might be a little bit too micromanaging, or this other person might be a little bit too high strung, or this person might be a little bit too willy-nilly. It's okay. Meet them where they are. And what my mother would always say is consider the source and govern yourself accordingly. Okay. That is a Ruth Riozzi statement, if ever there was one.
Yeah. You better say hi to her really quick.
Oh, hi, Mom.
You know she's going to say something.
She's probably going to listen. She'll be here next Tuesday. So I'll hear it if I don't mention her name. Hello, Mom, in Hudson, New York. The other thing that I've taken away here, too, is confidence. I've gained a lot of confidence working here. A little backstory on me is I have ADHD, and I was just diagnosed with it a few years ago in my mid-40s. And I've always felt a little less than when I was younger. I'm not an analytical person, which, I just listening to me for the past 20 minutes, I'm sure you have all caught on to that. I've always felt that I couldn't keep up in school. I always felt that, the things that I thought weren't, I was a dreamer. I was a daydreamer, and that was part of my ADHD. But I was given the opportunity to not have to be cerebral and not have to be analytical. Like Amy let me take my creativity and she let me run with it, which also led to confidence. And I know that you've talked about that in your past podcast, was confidence and doing the things that you love, the things that make your soul sing. And when you do that, you start to build confidence and you start to gain it. And then it just kind of, it really does. And then it starts to take, it catches momentum. Right. And then it just kind of runs with it. But it really, and I'm sorry, I have notes. I slacked Amy yesterday. And I'm like, I wrote 4 pages of notes. So I was just turning the page. But when you meet somebody that helps you realize your strengths and gives you the opportunity to flex that muscle, you feel like you're set up for success as opposed to being set up for failure. And I felt in the past that I had been set up for failure because it's like asking a fish to climb a tree. And I use that analogy around here all the time. I am a fish and I cannot climb a tree. And that tree could be an Excel spreadsheet. That tree.
Although you could get your way up that trunk now.
Y'all, you would be so proud at the way that I can navigate around Excel. Trial and error. And, practice makes progress. But,
that's good.
That is. Practice definitely does make progress.
Makes progress.
I don't know that I'll ever be perfect in anything that has to do with the administration part of my job. And Amy knows that. Yeah. But I love that I was given the opportunity to be successful and not feel like a failure. And I have felt like that in the past. And now that I have found my niche and I have found people that need that niche, it really did build my confidence. So coming off of Amy's other podcasts, definitely find your bliss and just run with it. Find what you're good at, what you would do without getting paid for it. Yep. And it really does.
Say that all the time.
I do. I would do this job for free. I do. I would. And
I would never let you.
Right. Amy wouldn't let me, and it would be much to my husband's chagrin, but I would do this job for free. Yeah. Did I answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. I'm reading my notes at the same time.
Fantastic. Okay, you did fantastic. Okay. So we've talked about channeling creativity, the driving force behind your inspiration, how to be resourceful, tips and tricks of where to look, tricks of the trade when merchandising, quieting your space, shopping your home, in more ways than one, applying that to your business. And now what you've taken away. Is there anything else that you would love to leave the listeners here for the Hottie Hustle with? Is there any other quick tips or rules they can follow when curating and balling on a budget this holiday season?
I was actually going to leave you with a quote,
That's
but
fine
I'm
too.
sure.
That's fine too.
But I'm sure that I could come up with something. I mean,
well, this is just episode 3. We can
we
can have a follow-up.
We can have a follow-up. There are so many things. And, we might want to actually do a podcast on like by the season, because there are just so many things that we can talk about. If you're wanting, spring decor, summer decor, how am I going to set this up to make a big impact? How am I going to make the customer feel like they're having an experience rather than just walking in another boutique or another store? Yeah. And Amy and I talk about that all the time. They have got to feel a certain way when they walk in, and they have got to feel a certain way when they walk out. And it is so very important. And as superficial as we would like to think, the way that our store looks, it's gotten more merit than it used to have. But the way that you make someone feel when they walk into your store, your home, they don't forget that. Right. People will forget words. People will forget things that you've said. People will never forget the way that you made them feel. So it's extremely important. Your merchandising, your surrounding, your home, your sanctuary, any space that you bring someone else into, but especially yourself, because it affects the rest of your life. How you treat the ones you love, how you treat people when you go out to run errands, the way that you feel and the way that spaces make you feel really do have a high impact. But that's a whole other episode. So let me just leave you with one of my favorite quotes. It's by Henry Van Dyke. And it goes, "Use what talents you possess. The woods would be very silent if no birds sang there except those that sang best." So girls, use the talents that you possess. It doesn't matter how small you think it is or how big it is. This world would not be the same if you didn't sing your song in the woods. So go do that. Go make everybody feel wonderful around you. And that's all I've got.
Well, if you didn't understand why we all love Lisa so much, now you do, because she truly does make everybody just feel good when you're around them. We kind of refer to her as like, the mom of the group. She's a great hug giver. So if you ever need a hug and you're here locally in the Central Texas area, come to Haute Boutique. We're passing out hugs on a daily basis. Hugs and popsicles, girls. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope all of these tips and tricks help to channel your own creativity. I hope this finds your own drive for inspiration. Again, even if it's not externally or physically, or literally in the sense of decorating, I do hope that you take some of what Lisa has said and find a way to internalize that for your own self, for your own confidence, and for your own business. Do not be afraid to quiet the noise. Do not be afraid to quiet the room. Sometimes our best decisions for me, quieting my headspace, has come from moving my body and walking in the morning. And, I've said this before in several other episodes, but just the whole idea for this women empowerment, paying attention to people who are just like me, who are just your average Joes trying to make a living, came from quieting my noise and quieting my mind. And I try as a business owner internally every day to see and to look at my surroundings, and am I using and shopping my home? And am I using my people to the best of their ability? Am I empowering them? Am I helping them make a difference? And if you're not doing that, I would challenge you to internally reflect and find a way that you can. What are some things that you could change in your business and your daily routine today that would reuse resources and efforts that you've already made that could make a big statement and make an impact? So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, guys. As always, make sure you head over to thehautihustle.com. We would love for you to become members of our paid monthly membership. There's an amazing community forming of women in a private Facebook group that love on and support one another. You're going to instantly get a $100 value swag bag. You're going to get a 30-day social media template. You're going to get a bonus episode of my top 5 must-dos when you start a business. And I just love and appreciate all of you guys for being here so much. Lisa, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you guys for being here. And until next week, guys, enjoy this Sunday drop of the Haute Hustle. And as always, stay hot and hustle hard.